Okay, welcome to our lesson on factoring by grouping. This is again just kind of another specific example of common factoring. So you'd be given a question like this. So you'd be asked to factor. So you're looking at all these terms and saying what's common to all these terms. And if you look, nothing's common to all these terms, right? You might, 10 and 2, well, those are both divisible by 2, but this is not divisible by 2. This has an x, this doesn't. This has a y, this doesn't. So, there's nothing common to all of them, so you can't common factor them all. But what you could do is what we call grouping. So sometimes you can just kind of group them into pairs of terms. So I'm going to group the first two and the second two. What I'm going to do is I'm going to factor the first two. So what's common to the first two? What's common to 5x and 10? Well, that would just be 5. And then what am I left with? I'm left with the x and the plus 2. And then I'm going to factor the second 2. So notice this is a subtraction. So subtract. And what's common to x, y, and 2y? Well, that's just a y. And then what are we left with? What do we need to multiply this by to get this? Just the x. And what do we need to multiply minus y by to get minus 2y? We need a plus 2. So that's okay, but it's not factored unless you have everything multiplied, and in this case we have things subtracted. So can we factor further? Well, notice x plus 2 and x plus 2, so that reminds you of that common binomial. So there's an x plus 2 common, so you have x plus 2. And then what am I left with here? I'm just left with the 5 minus the y. So this thing up here factors to this. And you could check that they're the same just by expanding this out and expanding this out, and you should get the same result. Okay. Let's just do one more example. So let's say you're given something like 4x squared plus 10x plus 2x plus 5. So 4 terms. You're going to look, are there any common factors, anything that divides everything? And the answer would be no. These all have x's, but this one doesn't. This is divisible by 2, but this is not, etc. So what divides the first two? So that'd be a 2x. So you're left with 2x plus 5. And then what divides the second two? Well, nothing divides the second two, so the greatest common factor there would just be 1. And then what's left? 2x plus 5. And notice that you get the common binomials. So 2x plus 5. And then what's left over? 2x plus 1. So this is the factorization of this. And notice that in both these examples we had these common binomial factors. If you don't have that, then you would just not factor. You can't factor. So you only group if you end up getting something where you have common binomial factors. Otherwise you would just say you can't factor.